Aussie Diaries.
It stopped. The power. Didn't have any power.
So, I've kind of been lying to you. There's a reason we don't have the van in any of these new shots, and why I've been wearing these shirts in my recordings. It's because we never made it up north. We're actually here in Margaret River, the furthest south we've ever been, but I'll get to all that, because right now I need to tell you the story of how we lost the van. The first night was amazing.
We left the Southern Beekeepers Nature Reserve and were eager to get north, aiming to have a long day's drive to end up somewhere north of Geraldton, to then be a morning's drive away from the Shark Bay area, giving us plenty of time here before heading up north to Exmouth. We've heard nothing but great things about this whole area, and we were really looking forward to our mini break. Passing through Jurien, it definitely felt warmer, and we were excited to be leaving the bad weather behind us. The Little Hippo handled some off-roading as we stopped at Grigson's Lookout. Before Dynamite Bay, in Greenhead, and flying past this big lobster in Dongara. We were making good time as bush became farmland with vast fields of green and livestock. It felt like farm country. And just like that, she died. The engine was still running, but there was no power through the accelerator. I pulled off to the side of the road. We jumped out, panicky and clueless. We popped up the front seat, so much smoke. I couldn't see any flames, so I thought that we were probably safe. And after a few seconds, I grabbed the camera. Steam still pouring out, but nowhere near as much as before.
I can't believe you noticed that. Could you smell it?
No, it was
smoking.
No, it stopped. It stopped. The power.
Oh.
Didn't have any power. The only person I could call was Andre, and it was pretty clear the van had overheated. There wasn't much we could do but wait for it to cool down. This felt like forever. On our own, in the middle of nowhere, on the side of the road. We felt defeated and out of our depth. Thankfully, she did start up again, and we were close to a free campsite. We didn't know if we would stay the night, but it got us off the side of the road, giving the van time to cool properly and us time to think. Unfortunately, filming was the last thing in my mind. Aside from being completely deflated and utterly gutted, we were thinking about how much we would be willing to spend on repairs and how we would even get to a mechanic's. The town we had just passed seemed too small to have one, so it looked like getting to Geraldton was our best hope of getting some help. It was still 60 kilometers away. We set off. The speed limit of the road was 110 kilometers an hour. We limited ourselves to just 60 to keep the engine cool. And after about 15 minutes of driving, the temperature shot up and we were forced to pull over yet again. We waited and limited ourselves to 50 kilometers an hour and managed another 5 minutes before overheating. We waited even longer and the sun went down on the second day of our trip. We were still 30 kilometers away. It took us an hour. Yeah, we limited ourselves to 30 kilometers per hour. The roads were quiet by then, but it was horrible. Nursing the remains of our little hippo towards the city. The van had symbolised everything we had achieved in Australia, and we were finally in a place to go and do what we want. But it seemed like that might all be coming to an end. Arriving in the city was comforting. It was nice not to feel so alone, and driving slowly on these streets wasn't so bad. There was a free car park camp spot next to a mechanic's, and so that is what we were aiming for. And as we drove up a slipway onto a main road, she overheated again. We were 2 kilometers away. We did limp her to the campsite, and we settled in for the second night of our road trip.
We woke the next morning trying to stay positive as we headed to the mechanics. They could only give us a list of other local mechanics, and so with a few calls we found a guy that would have a look for us. He was a really nice guy and sympathetic towards us and our situation. He explained that the diesels run hotter than the petrols, and the fact I'd lost power probably means I damaged the whole block. And with a pressure test, the obvious was concluded. There was indeed a big problem. He said for $500 that he could take it apart and have a look for us, but it was very clear that unless we were willing to spend the worst case scenario price, then there wouldn't be any point in taking it apart at all, as not to waste the initial $500. And so what was the worst case scenario price? A new engine, parts and labour. It looked like about $3,000 to $4,000. He let us leave the van parked there and said we should go and have a think. We tried to have some lunch, but I couldn't eat. It felt like I was being weighed down, a real physical, nervous weight over me. Not knowing what to do, and also hating the fact I had to make this decision in the first place. Was it always destined to fail? Buying my first car, away from family and home, trying to do a road trip in Australia, on a budget with no experience and expecting it all to go well. To be honest, my gut feeling was to just give up. I wanted to use the rest of our remaining money to just fly home. I knew it was over. We weren't going to get this high again. Not with the time and money we had left here in Australia. I knew going back to England wasn't the right thing to do, but fixing the van didn't seem right either. We could just about afford the repair using our remaining Australian money and some of our emergency UK funds. Having the van is free accommodation, transport, and can be sold on. It just seemed like $4,000 in the wrong direction, putting all our eggs in an already broken basket. I just felt like a failure. We had worked so hard and waited so long for this van and this trip, and now we were having to accept it was all over before it even started. I called pretty much everyone I knew in Australia. My family friends, my old boss, Andre, and Jake. And Jake did say that his dad was actually up around Geraldton for the week, and that we could potentially get a lift back to Perth at the weekend. This gave us something to aim for. It was horrible, but we made the decision. We would let the van go. I immediately felt like a weight had been lifted. I felt sad for the situation, but clear we had made the right decision. It had been the best 2 days of our time here in Australia, and probably the coolest thing we've ever done. But after 30 years on the road, I was the one to kill that Toyota. We needed to buy 2 extra suitcases for all our stuff, as the mechanic made some calls for us. The scrapyards didn't want her, but the mechanic knew a guy just outside of town that had bought a van in a similar state a while back to use them as some sort of volunteer housing, and that he was our best bet and to wait for a call. We spent the third night of our road trip
in a hostel. We'd made it 500 kilometers, but the road trip was over. I vlogged the more expensive stuff online and we gave the rest to charity shops, but I'm not sure it even covered the cost of the hostel. But within a few days, the call came through. Terry came down and had a look. He offered us $400, but it was the best deal we were gonna get. It was a good 10 minutes drive out to his place, and the little hippo was trying her best not to overheat on the way. It was the last time we would be riding in her.
Oh, such a shame,
Yeah.
Turns out Terry's an old diesel mechanic, and also the local certified animal rescue sanctuary person. So basically there are all kinds of animals on his land and vehicles in certain states of disrepair. We had a tea and shared our story, along with his chihuahua and snake. I had been feeling quite guilty about the van and the fact that I was the one that had killed it after all that time on the road. And it was nice to know that the little hippo was now in more experienced hands and amongst other family members. A nice place to retire, or maybe even new hope that one day she'll be on the road again.
I still can't really believe it. On day 2 of our trip, she'd been working fine for months around Perth, but it wasn't meant to be. The little hippo had been an amazing first car, and she'd taken us both on quite the journey. But we've made it all the way down here now, and I'll catch you up on everything in the next episode. Left him.
Turn every panic space in there.
He's gonna go, oh, you all left me.
It was mine.